Welcome to Going Off Subject, a Jones College radio and TV production in association with Free State Records. I am your host, Ollie Hammonds. In studio today with me, helping cast my bronze voice over your speakers, is the great one, the great producer, Matt McGuffey. Our very special guest this episode is women's head coach, Coach Deneshia Faulkner. Coach Faulkner, thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
All right, Coach Faulkner, so we're going to start off with the typical question to start off every episode. What was your childhood like? Where'd you grow up? Where are you from? What sports did you play? That kind of stuff.
Okay. Well, I am from Heidelberg, Mississippi. Born and raised there, and I actually still live there. My childhood, I grew up, of course, in a two-parent household, and I'm the baby of four sisters. I'm the baby of four. And I do have an older brother as well. A lot of people say growing up that I was always spoiled. I completely disagree with that, but, that's what they still say to today, that I was always spoiled, and I think it was because I'm the baby. But growing up, it was all girls in the house, so I was kind of, in essence, like my dad's son.
Yeah.
So I was the one that he had on the lawnmower, taught how to change oil, change a flat tire, and all that stuff. So it was pretty cool. My dad and I were really close. My mom and I were close too. But, I hung out a lot with my dad. So I learned a lot from my dad. And it kind of stuck with me, now. A lot of those principles still stick with me today. But in terms of sports, I played basketball in high school as well as running track. And crazy thing is, when I was in middle school, I loved basketball. So I started playing basketball. I think it was like sixth grade. They allowed us to start practicing with the middle school.
Okay.
And Miss Coach Vernell Lofton was the basketball coach there. And it's crazy now because she sits on the school board here at Jones.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And she was the coach when I was in middle school. And so, she let me start, practicing basketball in the sixth grade because you couldn't start playing with the school until seventh grade. So I would practice with them, and I was pretty decent. But she came to me one day and she said, the only way that you're going to play basketball is if you run track. She was also the track coach. And I was like, okay, whatever I need to do to play basketball, I'm going to do it. So if I have to run track, if I have to play football, I'm going to do it, because that's what I wanted to do. So I started running track, and I was a lot better at track. But my heart was still in basketball, So I that's how I started running track and got into multiple sports, and so it went pretty well, and I ended up earning a collegiate scholarship, for track. So I ran track at Alabama State,
Okay.
In Montgomery, and so yes, Ms. Lofton is the reason I started running track. So I guess I have her to thank, for getting my schooling paid for and everything. But it was basketball that kind of led me to track. Okay. And even though I ran track, my heart was always still in basketball. And my last year in Montgomery, I actually volunteered for a local high school, Jeff Davis in Montgomery. I was a volunteer assistant coach for their basketball team.
Okay.
And so yeah, that's pretty much my childhood. Yeah.
So we've had football coaches, basketball coaches, Coach Mueller, and we talked about their recruitment to college as an athlete, going from high school to college, and what that process was like and all that kind of stuff. What's the process like for a track star? Like, what is that like, getting recruited, and how did you choose, and that kind of stuff?
Well, it's pretty much the same. But I was at Heidelberg, and it's a small school. A lot of people hadn't heard of it, and we didn't get a lot of publicity, for the track program. And so I kind of just did like a lot of kids do now, who are at small schools or whatever. I just kind of started getting online, kind of contacting coaches, emailing coaches, filling out the questionnaires and things like that. And we just started getting the looks, and I'll never forget, Alabama State track coach, he came to my state track meet. And that's when I first met him, in person or whatever. And it was actually the assistant. He's the head coach now, but he was the assistant at the time. And I just kind of fell in love with it, I had probably it's been a long time, anywhere from 12 to 15 Division I offers out of high school, all for track.
Wow.
And I hated track. I hated it. But, It paid for it,
It paid for the education,
It paid for the education, and so it was worth it. And running track in college taught me a lot about, coaching. It's kind of where a lot of my principles and my values now as a coach came from my experience, running track collegiately.
Interesting. Get a little bit more detail on that. Like how? Because track seems like such an individualistic sport that it's kind of hard to, like as a person looking on the outside, to translate that into team sport coaching. But how did you learn lessons about coaching?
Well, actually, track is a team sport, even though it's both. Individually you run your race, but, they keep points. They keep points. And so when I was at Alabama State, we won 6 SWAC championships over the course of cross country, indoor track, and outdoor track.
Wow.
We won 6 SWAC championships as a team, not as individuals, and I never forget, one of my favorites was one year at the SWAC tournament. It may have been javelin. It was one of the field events. We had 8 girls, for that event. And you get points for 1st through 8th place. And our girls came in 1st through 8th.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow.
It was amazing.
That's pretty crazy.
Yeah, it was amazing. So as far as some of my coaching philosophies, and I feel like Coach Bean and Coach Crump taught me a lot about how to win. We won so much, to where we got to a point where we didn't even want rings anymore. We like, Coach, get us some charms or some earrings or something. We're tired of the rings. And that's crazy. But one of the things is, when I first got there, Coach Bean had this thing that at the time he called Hell Week. That's what he called it. And it was before classes start and everything. And we would practice 3 times a day, and nothing we did had anything to do with track. It was just a bunch of crap. Almost like he was just trying to make us quit, It was just a bunch of crap. We had to wear solid white T-shirts, black shorts, some of these stories I probably shouldn't tell, but we were not allowed to change throughout the day, not allowed to wash it throughout the day. And we would do everything from rolling around in the red clay on the softball fields, bear crawling. It was just a bunch of crap. And it would go on for like a week and a half. And we did it every year. So the 3rd year, I finally asked him, I said, Coach,
what is the purpose?
Why do we do this? And he told me, he said, I know you can run. I want to know who's going to stay. And I started thinking, every year we would always have about 4 or 5 people that would come in, and within Hell Week, maybe like halfway through Hell Week, they would be gone.
Wow.
They would be gone. And he also made me realize that those who stayed, they never quit throughout the year, And so he was like, at the beginning during Hell Week, it's not about who can run. I know you can run, that's why you're here. Yeah. It's not about who could run. He was like, we have to separate the weak from the strong, and that meant a lot. It meant a lot, and I really understood it. And that's something that I kind of, take into coaching now. Not to say that I have a Hell Week per se, and I have before, Yeah. But I spent a lot of time trying to separate the strong from the weak. I do a lot of mental training, and mental toughness is super important to me. Mental toughness is more important than your talent level to me. And I kind of got that from, my experience in running track.
Yeah. I mean, you see that everywhere in professional sports mostly too. My favorite football player of all time is Peyton Manning, and Peyton Manning talks about that, like the mental toughness you have to have.
Right.
And he speaks about how much work he did in film, on the field, just the most mundane skill practice that he would do.
Right.
It was because he's going to outwork everybody there. That's so interesting that you talk about that. Yeah. But so give us a little bit more detail. You're a basketball coach. A little bit more detail about your high school basketball career. What was that? Was that like?
High school. Starting out, I was just an athlete. I loved basketball. I ran track. It wasn't that I hated track back then because I was running track with all my friends, so the relationships that I built, so that's kind of what made it fun, kind of lost my train of thought there.
So I mean, you're running track with your friends. Did you have much crossover? Like, did you have many friends that did track as well as basketball?
Oh yes, because Coach Lofton would not. She coached both.
Okay, I see.
So
what
she
you're
was
saying.
not having it.
Yeah.
You were going to
run track if you're going to
and-
see the floor in basketball.
Right.
So what type of player were you in basketball? Would you say?
Just tough. I was tough. Wasn't very skilled. I was just tough. I was the one that coaches were going to put on the best player. On the opposing team, and I took a lot of pride in that. I was a defensive player. And I'm a defensive minded coach. And so yeah, I was just real tough. So yeah.
So you talk about becoming a volunteer assistant coach. So is that like the starting point of your coaching career? And talk about your coaching career up till now where you are at Jones.
Yes, that was pretty much almost the start. Actually, I think it was my junior year in high school. It was either my junior year or my senior year. Coach Nidra Hosey, she's coaching at Bay Springs now. She came on, and oh my God, like she took us like. We just changed to we grew overnight,
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Like she was really good though. She's a Hall of Famer at Southern Miss. And I think we were her first team. So she came in with a lot of energy, and it was just a quick switch, And so when she came in, I kind of started getting those feelings like, hey, I'd like to do that for some people, change things around or whatever, and be make the impact on somebody else that she made on us. And so she kind of put the thought or the idea in my head of, wanting to coach. And so also while I was in high school, I started doing a little sampling with it, I would get up and I would work out a lot, I would lift weights a lot. And so a lot of football players, that were my classmates, they kind of like jumped on that bandwagon and was like, hey, let me work out with you. Because the type of stuff that I did, it was kind of like toughness type stuff. And so we would I was kind of like a miniature trainer, in high school or whatever. And so I loved it. I liked that. And so when I got the opportunity to, volunteer at Jeff Davis High School with basketball, it was my first, job as a coach, and as a basketball coach, actually. And I just knew it just kind of confirmed everything, in my heart, I was a coach already, A lot of people have hobbies, they sit and they write poetry. I was that one geek that would sit around and draw up defenses and draw up plays and stuff like that. And I was in college, running track, was not about to use this stuff at all, It was just a hobby of mine.
That's fun. So what was your first head coach job? How'd you get that job, and what was that like? Like you saying, coming in and making a change for an organization.
Well, I started out in education. I was teaching English actually at the time, and I started teaching at Heidelberg. I was teaching English 2, and that's a testing area. And so my test scores were pretty good, But, I never wanted to be a teacher. I majored in it because I wanted to coach, and I had to teach something. So I just picked, And I guess I'm just the type of person with whatever I'm doing, I'm going to put my all into it. And so, our test scores were pretty good. And I didn't hate it, But I left. And because I wasn't coaching yet, I left and I went to Law Middle School, and I was teaching 6th grade English. And the men's coach that was at Heidelberg, where he was actually the girls' coach at Heidelberg, he was going to transition over to the boys' side, and they were looking for a girls' coach. So I kind of made a deal with them. Hey, I'll come back and teach English if you let me coach.
Yeah.
And so they was like, okay, deal. But we don't know what you know about coaching, but we really need an English teacher, so deal.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, I got you.
Got your foot in the door.
So got my foot in the door. And came into that program. They had only won like 7 games. My first year, we only won like 7 games. And it was just uphill from there, It was uphill from there. I think my second year is when, I brought in a team of 8th graders. I moved them up. And by the time they were in the 11th grade, we were undefeated, By the time they were in the 10th grade, we were making a state tournament, Kind of did a really good job with them. And so I left there and I went to Meridian. Did a similar, turnaround there and, ran that program and we were pretty good and won a state championship title. And then now I'm here. So actually, I've only been 3 places coaching.
Wow. That's very interesting. Let's talk about the process of getting here. How did you, get here? Because you're replacing Missy Bilderback, of course, very well known in this
Missy
conference.
and I were really good friends. That relationship kind of started because I've had 3 players to come through here and play at Jones. So I spent a lot of time at Jones.
And who were they? Yeah.
Yeah. Kiara Jones. She played for me at Heidelberg, and she came to Jones, and she did really well here at Jones. And Neat Cherry, who I just hired, I coached her in high school, and she played here at Jones. And then last year and the year before, AP, Ariana Patton, she played for me in Meridian, and she came. So I spent a lot of time at Jones.
Yeah.
Because I'm really close with my players.
So you kind of cultivated that relationship with the school.
Yes, because I was here. I have a relationship with my players, so I would come and support them, and talk to Missy, and so Jones it was almost like coming home.
Yeah. So you get here, and we talked to Coach Mueller about this, and I just want to know what your philosophy is on this too. We talked about the recruitment process and how that goes down. How do you treat that? Like, how do you know, okay, I'm going to go scout this player, we want this player at Jones. How do you get people to come play at Jones?
Well, in terms of getting people to come play at Jones, it's not extremely hard because Jones has made a name for itself, especially in terms of athletics, So Jones is like, the place to be. Yeah. But, surprisingly, I talk to a lot of kids now from a lot of like different areas in the state, and they've never heard of Jones. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, how are you a basketball player? You've never heard of Jones, But, it is what it is, and it's true, But Jones has had a lot of success in the past, so you just kind of, kids like to win. They like to win. And so when you're at a school, and where the program has been winning, your work is a lot of the work is kind of done for you. You know?
That makes sense. So you talk about in high school bringing up 8th graders, and by the time they graduate, they're amazing, and you can build that relationship, not just teammate to teammate, but teammate to coach.
Right.
So talk about how what has it been like trying to create that relationship at a JUCO where you got 2 years max at this school to play, but you have to have that camaraderie, that just culture to win. So talk about how it's been this preseason trying to cultivate that culture on your basketball team here at Jones.
Well, it's a little bit different being that, you're bringing kids in from different backgrounds, and they come from different programs and different cultures, but I think the relationships are important. So we spend a lot of time together, and team bonding is important. So, it's gonna be a transition for me, because I'm used to having kids,
for anywhere.
Years. Yeah, for years. And, now it's a quick turnaround. And then this year, we have mostly sophomores. So pretty much our entire team is about to leave. And, it's kind of weird, thinking about it like that. Like, okay, I've built this relationship. I'm pretty close with these kids, and I have them for a good 6 months now.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's pretty weird. But, I think sports is about building relationships, and these are lifelong relationships. So, it's pretty cool still, though, because, for a lot of them, I have 6 months left with them, but, I still have a relationship with them. I still talk to them from time to time.
Yeah. So, pretty much you've answered all the questions very well. So pretty much the last question is, how has Jones affected your life and your career? And just talk about how awesome it is to be a Bobcat, I guess.
Right. Well, I've wanted to coach on a collegiate level. And so I just I'm just grateful for Jones giving me this opportunity. And, it's not something that I would ever, take for granted, So I'm just going to make the best of it. I'm excited to be here. I think Jones is going to, open a lot of doors, for me, depending on, how I progress here and, things like that. So, I mean, I'm just very appreciative. I'm just grateful to be here.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for coming in. It's been a pleasure having you in studio. You've been a great interview and a pleasure to have in here.
Thank you so much, Ali.
All right. Well, you've been listening to Going Off Subject, a Jones College radio and TV production in association with Free State Records. Of course, in studio today with me was the great producer Matt McGuffey, and we'll see you next time.